All right, guys, welcome back to Rome Reviews. I'm Rome, and today we're back doing a comparison between the Vivo X Fold 6 and the Oppo Find N6. And we're just going to go through our paces, okay? We're going to talk about the designs, the screens, the batteries, the cameras, and so on, okay? All right, so with all that being said, let's get into it. All right, so jumping right in, we're going to talk about what we're seeing first, and that's going to be the screens. Okay, so while the Vivo X Fold 6 sits at 8.02 inches while open, I guess I should have mentioned that, while open, the Oppo sits at 8.12 inches. And while these measurements are just really minor differences, you will notice that the Oppo is just a slight bit larger, has a bit more vertical and a little wider, just a tad bit. So like I said, it's just very hard to notice. But if you care about that type of thing, or you just want the absolute larger device, the Oppo is the way to go. Okay. All right. And just like the inner screen is larger on the Oppo, it's going to be the same on the outer displays. Okay. The outer display on the Vivo is 6.51 inches and the Oppo is 6.62 inches. And once again, ever so slightly larger, ever so slightly. It's so minor that you won't really notice as much. But what I will say that you do notice just a little bit, and that's mainly because I have them side by side, the bezels are just slightly thicker than what's on the Oppo, okay? Which is what I believe is allowing the Oppo to have a larger display area on here, okay? All right, so moving away from the screens, you will see that the Vivo is 9.9 millimeters thick and the Oppo is 8.93 millimeters thick. So this one would be the thinner device, just a little bit thinner. And in hand, the Vivo is going to be just a little bit heavier and is 1 gram heavier at that, 226 grams and 225 grams. So they're both, you won't feel this in hand. This is just, there's almost no difference, okay? All right, so looking around the device themselves, you'll see that you have your power buttons, your volume rockers, and your action buttons. I'm just gonna call them action buttons. I know Oppo, I think they call there some type of AI button, and this one is an action button where currently is set for like the, I have it set for alert, like if you hold it, it'll silence the phone or turn to ring. And if you just double tap it, it'll turn the flashlight on. Over here, it opens like Oppo's Mind Space. It take a screenshot, or if you long press it, it'll start listening. As you can tell, I don't use it. I don't know why I had to activate it again. I think that's because of an update since the last time I used it. But if you hold it and long press it, it'll start listening, and you can talk about your screenshot just so you remember why you took that screenshot later on. Okay. All right. So that's what those are about. And around the top, you have your speaker grills. Over here is on this display side, and the same here, display side. On the left, let's turn that off. You have your hinges. On the bottom, goodness gracious, rotating these phones is crazy. On the bottom, you have your speaker. On the Vivo, it is on the same side as the top speaker, and on the Oppo, it is on the opposite side of the top speaker. Those are design choices. And as far as audio goes, if you're here, you're going to have both blasting from the middle of the screen. And if you open it up, they're both going to be coming from the left side of the screen. And that's going to be the opposite here. They're both going to be here, of course, one here and one on the bottom side of the device over to the right. And if you open the device, you're going to have a speaker here and you're going to have one here. So all about preference there as far as stereo audio goes and things like that. Okay, let's close it back up. Okay, so on the back of the device, you're gonna have your camera modules and you're gonna have a 200 megapixel main sensor on both, 50 megapixel ultra wide and a 50 megapixel telephoto. So in the camera department, as far as like just megapixel count goes, they are pretty much the same. Let's get into these displays a little bit more. And what I wanted to say was, On these, I'm going to turn them up to their maximum brightness, and I want to show you something. Can you tell? Can you see on the camera? Okay, so if you can't see, the Oppo is clearly brighter, and that's gonna translate into being in direct sunlight. The Oppo is going to be brighter. For some reason, Vivo they don't want to crank their brightness up. It was the same case on the Vivo X Fold 5, just the same thing. I don't understand why, but they need to crank it up a little bit more so it'll be more visible in direct sunlight, or they need to do what Samsung is doing and include those anti-reflective screen protectors on there or whatever. They need to do something. And that's also going to be the same case on the inner display. Same here. I didn't mean to turn that off. The inner display over on the Oppo is brighter. It's brighter. It's not a ton brighter, but it's bright enough to where you can tell the difference in direct sunlight. Okay. All right. All right. So we're going to keep the displays open and we're going to talk about the software on both devices. Okay. Over on the Vivo X Fold 6, they have the original S6 version, a special version for their Fold. I don't have I really don't know the difference, but I do know that they have something specific going on here as far as multitasking go. Maybe that's where it's different. Okay, and we'll get into that in just a moment. Over here you have ColorOS. It's just ColorOS. I'm sure it is a special version for the foldable, but it's not called out in the name. All right. All right. So let's keep it moving. Customization really quickly. All right. So if you pinch on both devices, it brings up a menu where you can go in and customize your device. Over here, you can click on wallpapers. Over here, you have to go one step further. You have to click into move the cube, click on wallpapers, and you have to go in that way, okay? But for the sake of keeping the comparison the same, let me go in. I'm gonna navigate in another way. All right, so once you're on this screen, you'll see that things look very similar. How you get there is a little different, but they do have very similar options once you get in here. I love that you could customize your device all in on one screen. I love that without having to go into different menus and things like that. Okay. While that is great, things do get a little different between the two and what customization options you have, because you can change the wallpaper here. You can change your clocks, and they have very similar options here. I mean, kind of similar, I guess I would say. They have the big clock, they have the vertical clock, and then, they have their different third option there. Okay. And you have your fonts. I don't think you have a fonts option over here, which is, not the end of the world, but it is something. Okay. And you can do your colors on both devices and so on and so forth. Okay. Here's where things get a little different between the two. All right. So you'll see on the Vivo, you have three options here, and this is for the home screen on both. You have your wallpaper, or you can match your lock screen, or you can blur the wallpaper. That's where it stops. Of course, you have more options outside of this if you navigate into other menus, but on the Oppo, you have all of these options across the bottom of the screen. All right. And that's what I love about ColorOS. You have a lot more customization options, and they're all easily accessible from one screen for the most part. Okay. So you have your icons, and one of my favorite things to do on the Oppo is hit this auto dark toggle, and it turns them all into this black aesthetic, which I really like. And I'm going to apply that, and then you see how that looks. It's just so nice, really nice. Okay. All right. So jumping back in, like I said, you have your styles here. You can blur, you can apply these different effects to it, and so on and so forth. Okay. I'm not going to do that. But you see where the customization options are just a little bit more vast on the Oppo than the Vivo. But if you were to come out, you can go into your icons, you can change them a little bit more, make them more square and things like that. So they do have more options. They're just not easily accessible from that screen. Okay. All right. All right, so moving on into multitasking. And guys, keep in mind, I know I'm not going to cover every single little, just the tiniest differences between the two, but I'm going to try to get as much as I can, okay? All right, so multitasking. I'm going to close everything because I want you guys to see how everything opens up. So all of the apps are closed now, and I want you to see how quickly everything opens. Okay, so I'm going to do Instagram on both. Boom. Okay, wasn't bad, not bad at all. But here we go. I'm gonna drag it and we're gonna go into split view on both. And let's open threads. Boom. All right, so everything is really, really smooth between the two as far as performance goes. Oh, and just in the interest of mentioning performance, this one has the Dimensity chip and this one has the Snapdragon everybody knows, okay? So just wanted to cover that really quickly. All right, so here's where things get a little different between the two. On the Oppo, you can go in and you can add another app. Okay, you can go into a split view where you can add an additional, like a third app. And just in the interest of, let's click on Blue Sky. I don't know if I'm signed in or not on here. All right, so you see how, there you go. You have a little different experience and you can expand it and make it huge. You can take it back down. Over here, you're not going to be able to add a third app. Let's go ahead and click in here. If I add another app, let me show you what happens, okay? I open Blue Sky on here. Okay, so let's just do Reddit. And you see what happened? It takes you into a different type of layout, okay? And you could add another app. And what did not open before? We're talking about wrestling in there. Okay, so you can see that it's just different. But while it is different, it's very, very smooth, okay? So they both have great options and you can open a floating window from here and so on and so forth. Now, if I wanted to open a floating window, I would kind of have to trick the OS over here as opposed to it just being an additional option in the menu up here, which is kind of weird to me. But this is what it's going to look like on here, okay? All right, but here's one of the cool things I really do like about what Vivo did with theirs. If you drag up from their right corner and you release it, it'll turn into Origin Workbench, which I think is really nice. I mean, it's so smooth. Look at that. If I want to go back into that multitask view, go back there and go back there. And you see how smoothly it transitions between the two? Just really good stuff. So they're kind of doing their own thing, which I have a lot of respect for. They have they're just doing their own thing. Now, here's something that's really cool. If I pinch with all fingers, you can turn all of those windows that you had open into smaller windows, and you can continue to open them and adjust their sizes, things like that, based on where you want them to be. Now, while I do prefer how Vivo does it here, because it puts them into a grid and they're all nice and neat, where this feels more all over the place, but you do have the freedom to move things around and put them wherever you want to put them. So if that appeals to you, beautiful, you have that option. If this appeals to you, beautiful, you have that option, okay? So they do their own thing, and there are other multitask features. I mean, minor features, but still features that I'm just not going to cover it because I could really spend an entire video just here on multitasking. Okay. But they do it their own way, and I have nothing but respect for that. Okay. All right. So let's talk about battery really quickly. Okay. So as you can see on both phones, I've charged them up this morning just so I can make this video for you guys. But what I will say is I used these devices heavily yesterday. I don't know why the screen on time is so different between the two, but they're both more closely used on in this time, the 8 hours, a little bit over 8 hours. And in that 8 hours, I got down to 20 something percent. And I just charged it up this morning a little bit to make this video. Okay. And you can see use since last full charge, 1 day, 20 hours. I wouldn't fully count that because I did charge it, okay? So just wanted to keep that in mind. But I was down, you can see I was down in 20% on both. And this is with heavy camera use, heavy camera use. I was recording videos yesterday, taking pictures and things like that, playing games, downloading updates and stuff like that. And I was doing a lot. I was using these things heavy, like crazy heavy. And keep in mind, oh, I wish I can go back before the 1 p.m. yesterday. That would be so nice because I want to show you guys something. This is based on use from like not even 100% on both devices. I was sitting around roughly around 80% on both devices when I first started the day. And by the end of the day, by this morning, I was on 20% between the two. These devices are insane. The batteries are insane. Now, keep in mind, the Vivo does have a 7,000 milliamp hour battery, and the Oppo, if I'm not mistaken, yep, has 1,000 less milliamp hours in the battery. So, with that being said, I'm going to mention this, okay? This is the Chinese version of the Vivo, which we all know is really strict on background processes and the apps and things like that, just doing stuff in the background. So for this to be a Chinese version and a larger battery, they still need to do some battery optimization, some software optimization to manage the battery better without having to be so strict on background applications, because the Oppo, this is the global version with 1,000 milliamp hours less, and it's keeping up with the Vivo. That shouldn't be a thing. I just feel like that shouldn't be a thing for a global device with full Google services running. You can use your Wear OS devices and things like that. All these things meant to drain battery, and this is keeping up with the Chinese version of the Vivo. It makes me a little bit nervous on how I mean, I'm being petty. Don't get me wrong, because these batteries are still lasting a day and a half with my use, my kind of ridiculous use. Okay. With all that being said, the global version of this device, I'm interested to see how their battery holds up, because that one's going to have full everything just running full strength, Google services, everything on the battery. So I'm hoping that they've done some optimization by the time that one releases, if it hasn't released already. But yeah, just want to mention that. So I was watching Netflix. I streamed it for an hour. I did YouTube for an hour. I was recording videos, downloading game updates. I was doing everything. I was just hammering these devices, and they held their own. So I'm impressed on both. Okay. Battery won't be an issue on either of these devices. So no concern there. Moving on. All right. So we're going to do speakers and haptics really quickly. So in the interest of saving a little time, we're going to crank them both up to 50% roughly. But right there, whew, that's rough. That's a rough calculation. But the idea is just to see how they sound where they're halfway up, see if they still maintain their clarity, and how well they hit each of the lows. Okay, so we're just going to hit the first song on each one of these, and we're going to do the Vivo first, and then we're going to switch over to the Oppo, and we'll probably do 15 seconds a piece, whereas when I'm doing a dedicated video, I do about 30 seconds per volume level. But let's go. Okay. All right, that was the Vivo, and let's jump over to the Oppo. All right, so what I will say, side by side, I'm going to say the Vivo sounds a bit better. It hits the lows a little better. All right. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Go ahead and crank them up max. Crank up max. All right, let's get back into it. Oh my goodness, that is insanely loud. Wow. Wow. I don't know. I felt a little overwhelmed by that one, but we'll talk about it in just a moment. Let's talk about the Oppo really quickly. Let's play it. Okay. For future reference, let's pick a song that doesn't have so much going on. But what I will say is, while the Vivo does get louder, considerably louder to me, to my ears, I feel like it got lost. The volume and sound and everything, the sound quality got a little lost in the loudness. While the Oppo got loud, but it still maintained a clarity that I liked a lot, or whatever. But so as far as lows go, it does hit the lows better on the Vivo, in my opinion. But this one maintained the overall clarity as it got louder, where I felt like this one didn't as well. Okay. All right. So hopefully both of these devices have the haptics video on them, and I could test those for you guys, and then we'll kind of talk about them. Okay. All right. Be right back. Very fortunate. Very fortunate. Okay. So we have the haptic videos on both devices. Let's turn them down a little bit more. Make sure they're not too loud. Crank it back up a little bit. All right, so starting with the Vivo. Yep, these are really, really nice haptics. Really nice. Very refined, very strong. And I'll say that I haven't had any issues with missing notifications on here. Not at all, actually. I do have the haptic strength cranked all the way up for those that are interested. All right, let's move it over to the Oppo. Do the same thing. Actually, now that I'm comparing them side by side, the Vivo's haptics are a bit better. But these feel nice, but they are definitely softer than the Vivo. And the strength on the haptics are both maxed out. These are nice, but they're not as strong as the Vivo. And while the Vivo's haptics, the vibration motor has, they're stronger, they still feel refined and nice. So, okay, good job, good job. Yep, so the Oppo is weaker in that regard. Okay, all right. All right, so in the interest of not disregarding the accessories that these devices have, I will say that one has more, and feels more of an enthusiast focus than the other. Where this one has the stylus pen and everything, and it is usable on here on both screens. And the Vivo has this camera case that comes with a camera lens and everything like that. That's for photography enthusiasts, that's what Vivo focuses on. So it makes sense for Vivo. All right. It makes sense for them. But the Vivo does not have stylus support at all. So there's something to be aware of. And that's why I mentioned the accessories, because this one has full stylus support. It has a case that it comes with, a nice, really well designed case that comes with the pen that holds the pen in there. And it's usable on both screens, like I said, and it's nice, really nice. The Vivo, no stylus support, but it does have this camera. And for the camera enthusiasts out there that want a foldable, here's your really your only option on the market right now. So just want to keep that in mind. And with all that being said, let's get into cameras. All right, so we finally made it over to the camera section of the video, and we're just going to keep it really straightforward. What I did was, and the idea in my head was to just test out each of the lenses and look for color accuracy and things like that. Okay, so going in, and I'm going to show you what I did, and it was just really simple. So nothing too crazy. So I went from the ultra wide to the regular wide, the main camera, to the telephoto. Okay, so and I just want to look for color accuracy in each one of those photos. So on the Vivo, we have that on left. Okay, know how that looks. And I have on the Oppo over here. All right, so in ultra wide, 15 millimeter over on the Oppo Find N6, 16 millimeter over on the Vivo X Fold 6. And we're just looking for that color signs and the clarity. And just looking at the screens themselves, I'll say that Vivo really captured that red brick more accurately as far as the color goes, more accurately. And that's just looking at screens. This may look very different on the computer itself. All right. But very close, and the amount of detail maintained on each of these phones is really good, especially in the lettering. And I've been trying to turn off everything that just dials up the AI. So to avoid that, I did dial it down and turn it off on the Vivo specifically because it gets really strong. But The lettering, as far as clarity goes, I feel like the Vivo did just a little bit better in clarity, but hey, both did amazing. Okay, jumping up to the 23mm lens, the main sensor, kind of, you can see even more detail is pulled in. Once again, you'll see up here in the brick more clarity on the Vivo as opposed to the Oppo. That's not bad because this is still a really good photo, guys. But I mean, just for the sake of digging in, that's what we're doing here today. As far as clarity goes, overall color accuracy, everything, the Vivo wins. And that's what their focus is. It's their cameras. So, hey, I think you should win. All right. All right. Over to the telephoto lens, the 3 times on them. All right. Even more detail pulled in. Look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful. You can see that it's a little soft around the edges on the lettering and things like that. Even in the shingles on the roof, the brick, everything, it's a little more soft, this photo, while the Vivo is really dialed up in the sharpness and everything just looks really crisp on the scene. Really good job. But once again, the color accuracy, I feel like the Vivo hit it more accurately to what I was seeing because that building is insanely red. Okay. So the other thing that I wanted to share with you guys really quickly, and I thought that it was a fluke. So I wanted to go out and give the Oppo one more chance because I thought that was a fluke. There's no way that the telephoto on this Vivo is so much better than the Oppo. But let me find the photo. All right. So I thought that for some reason, the Oppo, the macro shots were just coming through really soft. Not really soft, but soft. You can look at it and tell. And when you zoom in on Vivo, it's sharp. The colors, the color variation is there and everything. So I'm gonna tell you what happened. It was windy out there and these flowers were moving quite a bit. But for some reason, the Vivo with that new telephoto lens that they have in here did an incredible job of capturing the macro shot. The Oppo struggled a bit because it was just so windy out. And like I said, I really didn't want to believe that it outperformed it to such an extent. But I went back out there this morning. All right, I went back out there this morning after I left the gym and I was like, let me take this shot again because once again, it was windy. I wiped the lenses off really good, made sure everything was nice and clean. And you can see that there's still this softness to the Oppo. So yeah, once again, it's windy. So if your subject is moving any amount, is your macro shot is gonna come out soft, which I mean, hey, it is what it is. And that's not a bad shot by any means. But the telephoto on the Vivo is insane. Everything just comes through so much more crisp. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to talk too much. I'm trying not to. I'm going to go ahead and put all these up on the screen for you guys really big so you can take a look at them and see how you feel about them. And then we'll come back and wrap this video up. Okay. So I am currently recording audio on both devices. Both are sitting at one-time zoom. And we're just going to go through like a quick zoom test as I walk a bit. So we're going to go down to ultra wide on the Vivo and ultra wide on the Oppo. All right. And the lens transition seems to be okay so far. But let's jump from ultra wide up to 2 times on both. So Vivo first. Oppo second. All right, so let's see. Just want to let you guys judge that lens transition yourselves. That's 3 times on both. And the Vivo has a new telephoto lens on here, so hopefully it performs a little bit better since that's the newer technology on the Vivo. And we're gonna go up to 6 times, and we're just gonna manually dial it up to 6 times on the Vivo. since that's what the Oppo has as a preset on here. And then we're gonna go up to see if we can look around and just find something to focus on. Something a little prettier than a water fountain. All right. So 10 times on the Vivo. And manually zoom up to 10 times on the Oppo. All right, let's walk at those. Oh yeah, that does get quite a bit more jittery. Let's focus on something a little further away. There we go. Yeah, that does get a lot more jittery. So let's jump all the way down to 3 times. So it seemed like it was a little bit smoother on the Oppo. We'll see how it processes everything down, but yeah, it seems like the transition was smoother on the Oppo. 3 times, 2 times on the Vivo. All right, and then 1 times on both. All right, so we're just gonna do something really crazy. Let's focus on something really far away. Maybe that phone booth to stay in frame on both. So I'm gonna jump all the way up to 10 times on both again. And we're just gonna jump all the way to ultra wide. Just something insane, just for no reason. All right, so Oppo, oh, not bad. Oh, it snapped on the Vivo as opposed to just smoothly transitioning back. So that was interesting. All right, so you guys can take from that what you will. All right, and let's jump over to some photos. All right, so really quickly, I don't like to spend too much time on the crease itself, but we got to do it because Oppo did invest a lot of time into getting this crease right on their device, and they did an incredible job. So we got to pay homage to it. So I've covered it a few times at this point, but let's do it one more time. There's the crease. You'll see like little ripples, but I'm gonna tell you something. You don't notice it looking head on at the device. Hell, you don't really notice it unless you're tilting it towards a spotlight like this and looking for it. You don't feel it when you're rubbing your fingers across it, anything like that. You don't feel it. You don't notice it. This crease, and I'm sure that they're going to get better in the future, but as of right now, nobody is touching this crease. We'll wait to see what the Z Fold 8 does, the Ultra, and so on and so forth. We'll see what they do with that. But for now, Oppo is king as far as the crease goes. Vivo, it has pretty much a standard 2026 crease. I mean, you feel it when you rub your finger across it. It's not insane. You don't notice it when you're looking head on and consuming media or anything like that. You don't notice it, but it is there, and it's actually considerably more noticeable than what Oppo has on their device. So just wanted to talk about that really quickly. It's not a deal breaker by any means, but it is there, okay? All right, so we made it through the comparison, and we covered a lot in this video today, and I do apologize if I didn't touch on a specific topic that you guys were looking for. I do apologize for that, but we made it through, and I'm going to say that if I absolutely had, and I was just nailed down, I had to pick a device that works best for me, I would have to go with the Oppo. And the reason I say that is for two things: battery and software. ColorOS just talks to me. I really enjoy ColorOS quite a bit. I know that I mentioned that the photos come out a little softer in comparison to the Vivo. If there's any motion in the photo, I mean, if there's any motion on your subject or anything, they come out a little softer. Vivo focused on the cameras, and they did what they sought out to do. So the cameras are really good on this foldable. This is a foldable with impressive cameras on it, really impressive. Once you turn off all that AI telephoto enhancing stuff, this camera sings to me. It does the job. It does an incredible job. The OS, Oxygen, Origin OS is really good. It's just, as far as like built-in customization and things like that without having to download any third-party stuff, everything is baked in here as far as like customization options go and smoothness and everything. This is really smooth. It just lacks the customization options that I really want in the device, okay? The other part is the battery. For this to be a 7,000 milliamp battery on the China version of this phone, I'm kind of concerned about what the global version, how the battery performance is gonna look in that device. I'm kind of concerned about that. So battery and OS, that's why I would choose this one. And the cameras are still good enough in here to where you get the job done. So, and I did mention the crease a little bit. Since I've been using this device, I do notice it more on other devices that fold or whatever, but it's not a deal breaker on here by any means. So all of that being said, nice little bow on the video. The Oppo would probably win in my book. Okay. All right. So really appreciate you guys being here. Feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way and it helps me continue to bring these devices to you guys. So really appreciate all the support. All right. And I will catch you in the next one. Later.